What's up, guys, and welcome back to episode 68 of the Try Time podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Callum.
And this is kind of another splurge our thoughts on the week of rugby.
Yeah.
To you guys, and hope that you actually want to listen to two random people Twitter on for an hour.
Yeah, basically. And as you can see to the sort of visual watchers, I guess, listeners.
Oh, you're back in the studio.
We're back actually in the studio for the first time.
In what, about 2 months?
In a good few months, yeah.
We all know you've missed this wallpaper. It's the highlight of every pod.
Yeah, so, yeah, we talk about this week. And, I mean, it's one of them. It's a weird one. Not a lot's happened. I mean, we're recording it on the Sunday before you've seen this. So there's, like, a lot of the championship games haven't happened. So we won't necessarily be...
All we know so far is Batley have got battered, and that's it.
By Toulouse, yeah, which probably would have expected. But, yeah, I mean, I guess this week the big thing has been... I mean, we recorded a podcast about Leeds, and then like the day later, the sack for Rohan Smith. So I think we should probably start with that, as we didn't cover it last week.
Yeah, since it seems that Headingley has bugged the room where we recorded,
yeah.
They're a bit keen at them. Myla watches every week. Headington's bugging the pod. what magical thing's going to happen this week before we go live? Yeah, Rohan. I want to be objective about this and not bitter. Like, he seems a very nice bloke, albeit I think the job was ultimately too big, and his presence in the media at least didn't seem to fill the fans with much confidence of his passion. I think it's the right decision.
Yeah. Well, you've been calling for it for a while now,
yeah.
Realistically.
And, you know, I wish him all the best and hope that in his next role he can grow and develop as a coach, but ultimately it's a results-based business, and the results weren't good enough, and you know, it was probably too big of a job for him at this stage of his career, to be honest. I think that's the problem, because you look at Wellens and Pete, etc., are very inexperienced coaches, but they're coming into a side that doesn't really need fixing. And in fact, you'd argue that the way the St Helens fans carry on, that Wellens isn't doing a good job with what is already a top-level squad.
Yeah, no, that's true, yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I guess you're happy,
you're
happy with it, then?
It was the right time.
Yeah.
It's too late, in fact. It should have been sooner, because the results just weren't there, and the style of rugby wasn't there, ultimately. But... you know, better late than never. We can now move forward, and I mean, reportedly Brad Arthur has had his interview.
Yeah.
Which was the name I wanted anyway. So, fingers crossed, Leeds don't fuck this up. Because the last time we had a top-level coach at like that sort of history in the club was probably when we appointed Brian McLennan from the New Zealand national team. What's that? 15 years ago, maybe more.
Yeah, you've never really sort of...
Well, McDermott came from Harlequins, I think.
Yeah.
Or London, as we now call them.
Known within the UK circles, but not the wider sort of rugby league.
Yeah.
At the time.
Then who did we have after him?
I mean, you've had
Dave Furner, who didn't really have an NRL pedigree. He was just a former player who happened to be from down under.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, I'm ignoring the caretaker stint. Then it was Richard Agar, who didn't even want the job and said publicly he didn't want the job. So when he was offered some money, he took it, the first chance he got.
Yeah.
And arguably was the last decent coach, right? Because the last one to win a trophy.
Well, that's true, actually, yeah.
And then we had Rohan, who obviously it hasn't worked out. But you know what? Fair play to him for actually turning up on Friday night and realising that the game was about Robbie and meant more than any personal feelings about him losing his job. So, as a human being, I have tremendous respect for him for that.
Oh, no, definitely. And I think it was handled well, probably by the club, I guess, that I think they would. Well, I don't know
what happened. If you just got some random chairs or whatever, I apologise.
Yeah.
You just died, but
we're back, yeah. I like for example, if Leeds, if they'd kept Rowan in charge, which they easily could have done, and then Leeds would have lost, and then a sacking on the back of that, when everything about the game's about Robbie, I think it was right to do it quietly and nicely in the week before, rather than make that game remembered as the game that, you know.
Well, do you not think that's part of the reason we never publicly said that Chen was coaching?
Maybe, yeah.
Because then there was none of this speculation over how the interim coach would get on. It was all very much focused on the key message. That being said, from Leeds, on a rugby perspective, it looked a lot more like what you'd expect. There was none of this passive defence shite.
There were effort, wasn't there?
If I was attacked more, it looked like they were taking the game to Lee rather than sitting back and hoping it would come to them. Which, you know, I think as a lower division coach, letting the opposition tire themselves out almost when you've got players who aren't full-time and aren't as fit probably does have some merit. And that's probably why it was a very different set of tactics and results to what you saw when he had his short stint at Bradford.
Yeah, probably so, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't think it works at top level up against international players who are very physically fit.
No, I'd probably agree with you on that one, I think. But yeah, I mean, we've been saying for ages that, you know, some games you've been like, I kind of hope we lose these because it might actually get him sacked. And I guess the Hull FC game proved to me that.
Thank you, Hull. Do you know what? It's because Richie Viola listened to the pod again. He knew what we wanted.
Exactly. I'll tell you what, Hull are basically our new club now.
Oh, Hull. At this point, I'm going to say FC in my second team.
We've been through the ringer with Hull. We've been in their end at first game of the season in Derby.
I've been in their sponsor section.
Well, there you go. We've absolutely ridiculed them on here for some of the decisions they've made.
We've rebuilt the entire club.
Yeah. Also, did I not say on one of these pods a couple of weeks ago that for Myler to send some players to Bradford and we've just signed Pele?
Yeah.
So we've faffing it. I don't even remember that.
I'm giving up. Although your laptop does sound like it's about to explode.
Yeah. But yeah,
it's just some fun little fun and games for him. I mean, amateurish rugby league will be all over this.
Yeah. But no, I think Hull seemed to have turned a bit of a corner, I guess, as we were mentioning last week. But yeah, I mean, Friday night, I were there, you were there, obviously. What did you make of the night as a whole for Rob?
Oh, it was a very emotional day.
Yeah.
And this isn't just Leeds. The entire sport has excelled itself.
Yeah.
And I thought, obviously, you guys won't have seen if anyone was watching at home, but just before we went on, we had saying a few words at Headingley. And even that, from that moment, that really set the scene well.
No, definitely, yeah.
And, you know, we had the usual banter between the three. And do you know what? It kept it light-hearted enough that actually it was fitting for Rob.
Yeah.
Who always knew when to crack a joke. And I think would quite like the fact that despite everyone's hurt and grief, there's still time to have a good laugh about the good old days.
No, definitely. I think there were definitely a bit of that way. We also had a lot of... It was a very uplifting day at the same time as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really I enjoyed it. You go track, you fuck with IT, and I'll monologue about the day and what happened and stuff. But I think it was really good. Obviously not being a Leeds fan, being there, I still thought it was very good. It was like a packed house by 7 o'clock, which you don't usually see. It quite weird, really. And the atmosphere obviously picked up from then, and it never really stopped, did it? Really, the atmosphere throughout, you know, lead up to the game and throughout the game, it was really.
It's probably the loudest I've heard the South Stand in years because of how packed it was.
Yeah.
And it makes me miss when every week was like that.
That's the thing, it kind of makes you think like, this is what we should be aiming for every week.
Yeah.
Almost. And that goes across the whole of Super League. I mean, you've got to think that game happened in the same league as, like, you could have 2,000 people watching Salford against Huddersfield or something, for example.
I knew you were going to pick them too.
I mean, or even a London, and it's like...
Do you know what I'd have gone for if you'd have flipped the venues around for Huddersfield, Catalan?
Yeah, maybe a game like that. And where it's like, I mean, again, we just look through. It's like we just need. Maybe I should sit there and we get it to work properly. But yeah, like it's weird how that happens. And I mean, it links into something that I'd mentioned to you on the way here about. It's been announced now that Huddersfield Town have sold 13,000 season tickets for League One, the third division in English football.
Imagine if Hunslet did that.
Yeah. But imagine if like Huddersfield can't get even a quarter of that in Super League, and it sort of highlights where the game is really, especially in a town like Huddersfield. I'm not just singling out Huddersfield; they're just I feel like
I don't know. You've got the reputation on this pod for bashing.
Even though it's never me, I look every single person who goes to a Huddersfield game, I commend because they go.
Personally, there's only about 10 of them.
There's all. Like, it's not their fault that no one else wants to go. They follow the team home and away, and I think there's some of the stick that they get because it's not their fault. They're the ones there. You can't slag off. It's like people slag off to slag them people.
It keeps flipping between the main camera and your laptop.
And the secondary camera, yeah.
So for anyone who's just curious about the setup here, we've got the main camera at the end of the studio, which is this fancy bar thing. God knows how much it costs. That's projecting across the table and onto us. We've got the laptop recording just over to the side, which is why I don't know, this might not be doing it on your end, and if not, then it's like now, because we have the laptop camera, she's looking at one of the chairs.
Yeah, basically. But I mean, there's not not to worry about. We're fine. We're
not going to go off air randomly.
No, we're all right.
But it is really annoying me actually how we seem to be having today for the technical issues.
Well, yeah, because we've got 3 podcasts to record today.
Yeah, you've got us as a batch because he's starting off to lose.
Yeah, and we've also got to get to a Bulls game at 3:00 this afternoon.
So. Yeah. Hence why he's in a Bradford shirt, whereas I'm more concerned about the Spanish Grand Prix, which I am missing to go watch this game. So, feel honoured.
And you've got your Bulls top wheel, haven't you? I'm looking at it over there.
There is one over there.
Yeah.
But priorities first.
But yeah, as a sport, we do need to be encouraging events like this. I mean, the Hull Derby, we were their first game of the season, was at that sort of big game feel, that big attendance.
And to be fair to him, Hull did a good effort last week for the first game since he passed.
Yeah.
And their own tribute to that, which obviously was always going to be on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great to see that many people, and credit to Lee. They brought really good numbers. I don't think I heard much more than Oli out of them all night, but fair play, they were there and they were singing.
Yeah, and they showed their respects as well at the same time. They didn't try and...
Shout out to the players who missed the guard of honour, by the way, because they were too busy with the away fans.
And I didn't see that. I'd already gone.
Yeah, then the stewards were just like, nope, you're too late, security, we're not letting you in. So they missed that. So fair play to you guys, 10-10, you had one job. Rest of the league players who bothered to turn up, thank you. To Josh Charnley, who were letting some random kid run near the fireworks and got told off for it. That was quite amusing.
But no, we're a big event and a good event as a whole anyway, and obviously emotional, like we've said, but I think it's one of them where might look back at that, which was last March. Kind of glad that you went, glad that we went to sort of game. But,
and very glad I've got that shirt that will be staying in my collection for a long, long time to come.
Yeah, a lot of people had them on, didn't they? So I imagine a lot of money's been raised for M&D through this year. So I'm not sure exactly what the percentage is actually.
I think it's 10 from each shirt.
All right, well that adds up, doesn't it?
Which
yourself.
Oh yeah, the club got slated for that, by the way. Why is it not more? It's like,
well, they've still got to at least break even on the show.
Do you understand the manufacture? Like, yes, okay, they might not cost much to make, but you've got the entire distribution to get them to the club. You've got the site admin time. That you've got to pay the wages for the people processing them.
Yeah.
We'd all love to see 100% of the profit go to MND. But we also have to be realistic about what's going to happen. And for the most part, I'm sure people are. I'm sure this is a very small minority.
Yeah, it's one of them small vocal minority, isn't it? But
like the people who are more interested in pointing out the fine T's and C's and small print of a banner than the actual day. You know who you are.
But there's people like that. I mean, obviously in rugby, but in every sport as well, I guess. But like, there's always people on Twitter who are like the trolls or the people who've just always got something to pick at. But
And you know, actually, I will say this for the last point on this. Fair play to Castleford, because for once you've not gone point scoring because you realise something's actually bigger than the game. Because anyone who's in the league, in and around the Leeds fan bases will know exactly which Castleford fan I mean when I make that comment, because there is one that doesn't and get anything that Leeds do, and it's quite amusing.
Yeah.
And they will know exactly who I'm on about.
See, I don't even know what you're on about, really. So
I won't name and shame him on the pod. But
I've got that equivalent, but for like Halifax fans.
It's not Harry.
No.
Well, that's the one spot that isn't Harry, because he is basically a Cas fan at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he said he was going today, though, so.
Yeah, it's a good part of Matt's going to bother him if it's a nice day.
Yeah, well, it's going to be. It's sweltering, isn't it?
Yeah, until we start getting spurred to a crisp, in which case Matt to seek shelter.
Well, that's what it is at odds, so that's why it's the best stadium in rugby league, because it's like, if it's cold, you freeze to death. If it's warm, you burn to death. So it's like the extreme. It's the extremes, basically. Yeah.
And if you stand on the track, you get run over to death.
Yeah.
Or charged by a bull girl with steam coming out of her nostrils.
By a Jaden Ockenbaugh doing a dive foot corner.
Yeah, he's more distracted by local high school.
Guys, that's not like you to say that, is it?
I'm just quoting a friend of the pod.
Yeah.
Who, for legal reasons, I will not name.
But no, it's been an interesting week, I guess, Super League wise. It's like, I feel like we say this every week, though, like, Super League is generally.
I love how the theme of this pod's have been Super League's interesting. Super League's dead because the top six, you know who's going to win. Super League's interesting again.
But it's not like, for example, on, Friday night, you got Wigan against London, and you're like, it's just Wigan are just going to win. Like,
can we be honest for a second? Apart from Wigan fans, did anybody actually watch that game?
Really? That's what I was going to say.
Because any neutral, surely to God, was watching what was going on at Leeds. Certainly pre-game and post-game.
But even in the game, that's a closer game. It's a mid-table clash.
But then unless you're invested in either of the teams, which I think even if I were a London fan, I'd probably rather watch the other team. It wasn't happening. But like you say, realistically, you've got this close game where there was a lot of questions because they've been pretty even this time. Lee have pulled out some good results, as of Leeds. And then other weeks they've looked dreadful. You've got obviously the question marks over how much of an impact will Rohan Smith have.
Yeah.
Versus how many are Wigan going to put on London, and can London get a consolation try? The answer to which was 36 and no. So it wasn't really a thrilling game. Yesterday was quite a bit more interesting. Hull nearly going back to back. It's every time you move that bloody ball. I'm going to test that hypothesis.
Yeah.
Stop moving your ball.
I will move it in like 5 minutes and we'll see if it does it then.
Okay.
We'll go for that.
Yeah. It wasn't a great game. I think Warrington were very scrappy. Hull also not. They've turned a corner in terms of the staying in games, but I would still not say they were playing good rugby. Which I think is to be expected, really. They're not really able to make too many squad movements right now.
Oh no, well they've done
it. And they've at the moment they're trying to clear out more than anything and kind of say this season, right, it's bust, we're not doing well. Let's get the right squad balance for next year. Okay, maybe it's not your ball.
No, it's probably not.
You got who also ran Hull KR very close with it coming down to a drop goal.
Yeah.
Again, KR fans saying I didn't watch this one, but
no, me neither.
Not their greatest showing by any means, but again, Lingard's starting to instill a bit more fight in the Tigers, and
which is what we were brought
getting
in
them
to
up
do.
the games a bit more, and that's the thing. Isn't it? Sometimes coach and often yes, there's some valid criticism there, but we have to remember what they're working with. I mean, this is a cast squad that last year were fighting relegation, and I think the majority of Super League wanted to go down.
Yeah.
This year, I mean, they're probably the third worst team. That's an improvement.
Yeah.
They have moved in front of Hull. And you ask anyone in the league who's probably got the weakest squad on paper outside of London, and you're probably looking Cass. I mean, I think we all put them 11th, didn't we?
Yeah, FC's team were
apart from the Cass fanboy, but
yeah. At the start of the season, we had FC a couple higher, didn't we? Because I just thought I didn't expect them to do anything special, but
I think we all kind of thought Pele and Ockenbar and SAS would be a bit better than they have. And actually, SAS, to be fair to him, has been a good acquisition.
Yeah.
And I think he will, if Hull were to somehow pull off a complete U-turn on this squad and push for playoffs next year, he'd be, again, a key part of that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, one's on.
One a permanent, with his contract terminated, and the other on a dual reg, with probably thinking, how can we terminate it?
But the thing is with that though, like as a Bradford fan, and not all Bradford fans agree with me on this, by the way. I like the Pele signing. I think is great. Like I think Pele, his biggest issue is his fitness and a bit of discipline.
Is he in the squad today?
No, he's not, because he needs international clearance or something.
He's come from Hull.
That's just, I don't get it either, mate. But I'm assuming
he's already got a visa to work here.
I'm assuming because he's got to terminate his contract, so then he's technically unemployed, and then like get a new. I don't know. He probably just needs switching over. I
mean, I know Hull is in place as a bit third worldly, but I didn't think we needed international players to come from East Yorkshire. Should we have filled out some visas when we went to Derby? Well, then we technically broken the law and worked in a foreign country.
So we're missing him today, but I assume he'll be playing next week. But anyway, I'm happy with Pele because I think he was good. He's been good in them games for York. He's kind of almost made for the league, I guess, and I think it's a good, smart signing, especially because I imagine we've not paying him a lot because he's been paid out from FC or whatever, however that's worked. But then Ockenball, why is he there? Why is he like? Pele, I'm happy with, but Ockenbar, we play him on wing, and he's not good on wing. He's not good in centre. He's not good anywhere. I just don't. His effort levels are terrible. The one thing I'll take, like, we've had some terrible players over years, right? But effort, just give me effort. That's all I care about. A player who just gives effort, you'll appreciate.
But you know the prime example, don't you?
Go on.
Sam Hallis in his third stint at Bradford now. He is not the best technical player out there, but he gives 110% whenever he steps onto the pitch.
Exactly, and everyone loves him for that. And it's the same with a lot of players, but
that's why he keeps coming back.
Ockenball, like, he doesn't chase kicks, so we end up with a staggered line. He doesn't tackle. He doesn't tackle. He doesn't, when the ball's in the air, he doesn't catch it. He's the tallest man in the world, and he can't catch it. But yeah, like, gets out jumped by like smallish player on pitch. His effort levels are terrible, and that's why I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, he's going to play today, but people love him because he makes good yards because he's so big out. But then he takes 2 drives every half.
Yeah, because a lot of the Bradford fans have been saying sign him up permanently, and
I'll
tell you what, let's park this because you'll be seeing in a week, next week, week after.
Yeah, if
our opinion on some of rugby league's weirdest transfers, and we can kind of touch on that one there.
Yeah.
I think with Pele, let's cut the lad some slack. He's 22 years old. He's moved halfway across the world. and he's still obviously developing his rugby brain. Yes, okay, he's got some fitness issues, which, as an overseas top quarter athlete, he shouldn't be happening. He should be better disciplined than that. But he is still a bit of a kid.
Yeah, and
to expect
it doesn't look like one, which is probably why people don't view him as a kid.
Probably, but he's come over probably for the first time really on his own.
Yeah,
because he's at that age where I doubt he's been too far removed from his family, and as far as I'm aware, at 22, he's not married with kids.
Yeah,
so he's probably making this journey largely on his own.
Probably.
To chase up what is a potentially quite lucrative opportunity, but also came with a lot of pressure and probably not the best environment.
And he was on the back foot from the first game with that
swinging arm.
Yeah,
the fans kind of had an extra eye on him, and it's hard not to feel a bit of sympathy for the lad because he's uprooted his entire world and he's been judged and cast a failure after 6 months, where he's probably not really adjusted. Also.
Yeah.
And again, you're kind of looking at that, comparing him to the other overseas prop, SAS, who's a bit more experienced and, unfortunately, for Pele at least, has really hit the ground running. So it almost highlights more where his deficiencies are. Statement. I'd rather have Pele playing than Ockenbaugh.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think the biggest problem is Hull are not a club right now with where they are and with their quota situation that can afford to give Pele time to settle and develop. For what they brought him to do and what they were probably paying him to do, they needed him to do it now, not in 3 seasons. And I think that's the big problem where this has failed. I think it's poor from the previous sporting director or whoever was in charge of signing off these signings, because I don't think he's the player that he was ever. You had the expectation he would be, and that's not his fault. You just bought the wrong guy.
No, yeah,
it's like buying a winger to play prop. It's never going to end well, is it? Because you've just got the wrong bloke.
Yeah.
Jay McGilvery might be massive, but he's
a game than that. Just size and stuff. But
yeah.
But I think that's fair. But yeah, Milo seems to be fair with this, sorting some bits out over there, doesn't he?
Well, it's interesting because he's certainly leaving his mark on the squad. So time will tell if he's been a good appointment or actually he's not really meant the results you'd hope. But we can't say that he's not been backed.
Yeah.
And, obviously he was a good player, not just for Leeds, but in general for the sport. He did a lot for, Warrington, Catalans. Was it Salford for a bit as well? Or am I thinking of Ratchford? I think I'm thinking of Ratchford there. Did Milo also play for Salford?
I think so, yeah.
So, yeah, I wish him success. Oh, I mean, he didn't do much at York, but that maybe wasn't his fault.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think his heart were ever truly in that, were it?
I don't think his body were either, to be honest.
Nah.
But
his bank balance were.
I mean, I doubt he pocketed too much of it, given he was only there 5 minutes.
Yeah, but then
I also don't really know why, because from what I've seen of him this season, Miles Harrison has done a fine job at fullback and looks like a promising little young player for him.
He did all right against Bulls, definitely.
As a player, we probably didn't expect to be shouting out on pod when we started this week.
No, we didn't, to be fair. It's a bit of a random one. But, I mean,
we've got 3 to record, so we probably don't want to ramble on it.
I've got one last thing just to just fill out this last sort of 5-10 minutes.
Go on then.
Of the shot.
This is going to turn into half an hour, and
now just give us ties it into what we spoke about at the start. The next Leeds coach. Who you thinking, or what you thinking? Chef Walker.
No, I think he's on his interview. I think it's Brad.
Right, so let's take Brad Arthur out of there, who's the obvious good choice. No, but come on, man. Like, what would you feel? How would your thoughts be about if Everton says, right, I'm going to give Chev till end of season?
If we're doing that, I want him to also announce who's coming in.
Yeah, so they can work together on recruitment.
Because that's the last thing I'd want is a disjointed setup for next season. And, actually, for whatever reason, Brad took the job and said he didn't want to start till next year.
Yeah.
And you said we'll give Chev it on the interim to the end of the season. That's fine. Like, no one's expecting anything from this year anymore.
Yeah.
It's been written off, basically. We're probably in a battle for 7th. At a push, we might sneak 6th if somebody really falls off.
Yeah.
But realistically, playoffs and any success is not likely. I think what you probably see with that is at least Chev has the club knowledge and that bit more passion to motivate the players. A bit more like what JJB did in his interim role between Ferner and Agar. What I wouldn't rule out is saying that actually we should keep Chev very close to the new coach, because actually, in an ideal world, if we get Brad Arthur, he fit, stays for a few years, hits the ground running, achieves real success. Let's say 5 years later he goes back to Australia.
Yeah.
If in 5 years working with Close as his assistant, I'd then like Chev to be in a position where he could step up and continue that role.
Similar to Paul Wellens.
Yeah. Because, you know, he has always come across as a decent bloke. He's been with the club for years in various roles, progressing in seniority. And clearly Leeds think a lot of him as well.
Yeah.
And actually that's quite similar to Matty Pete's rise through Wigan and how the club backed him and thought a lot of him and gave him that opportunity. Yeah. I think with where Leeds are compared to where Wigan are, it's a very different ask, and I wouldn't want to throw him in that deep because, you know, we've seen coaches that have coached before come in and fail. Yeah, well, the last thing you want to do is throw him under the bus because then you risk burning the bridge with the fans, or thinking, well, he's not good enough to coach, so why would we keep him around somewhere else?
Yeah, and then it's like,
and you don't want to tarnish what's been decades of fantastic legacy, both as a player and in the staff.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think he's going to have any objections to that. Like, he's not coming out and shouting, I want to be head coach, and if I don't get it here, I'll apply for other jobs.
No, I think he's happy just doing that sort of...
He's just happy being at Leeds.
Which is, you've got to sometimes think about, like, for him, if he can then be... Now he's got that assistant sort of under his belt anyway, if he can keep doing that, he could then take up roles in, you know, in a lot... For example, I use an example which, obviously with Bradford, so I know it well, but like, Eamon O'Carroll was the assistant to Matt Namara at Catalans.
Oh, no, for the Sean Long at Fair.
Yeah, well, that's... And then, so he was the assistant at Catalans. Then, obviously, we got him, but we announced like halfway this time last year that he was going to be the coach from the start of next season. Yeah. So, with how once we let Dunning go, similar to how you've let Smith go, we had Lee Greenwood, who's the assistant coaching. We had like Ryan Noble there as a bit of like a director, a rugby type thing, all working together. And then throughout the end of last season, they worked with O'Carroll to sort of iron out issues and sort of get the squad to a position that O'Carroll liked with then the signings. Yeah. So that's the sort of thing which I think you're saying would be a good idea.
It needs to be joined up though with an Ash. I don't want to say, well, the worst thing would be Chev's into the end Don't be wrong, it's an achievement. But there's a difference between winning a league where there's probably a really good team back then.
Which back then there was really that season.
Teams that are made up of plumbers, painters, and candlestick makers in your forward pack.
Yeah, they were like that first season. Like we're talking like the first season Bradford went down. It was literally just Bradford and Lee were like the two clear best teams.
Yeah, then you had your others like, I mean, Featherstone have always been upper end. They could compete, but maybe weren't fixed back then. But like, you've got your perennial yo-yos, your Dewsbury's, your Whitehavens, your Workingtons, who they really give it a good go. You know, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way to them, but they just simply haven't got the budget to.
They haven't got the scope.
Ever go full time and really build something at this point in time.
Yeah.
They are very much part-time. They're limited by whose careers allow them to go in Cumbria, where it's a very different economy to Yorkshire and Lancashire, where the bulk of those teams are.
Yeah.
And if you're coaching a very good, well-experienced league team and you're not winning those games, you're definitely doing something that's a bit pear-shaped.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, you know, and I mean, don't get me wrong, Rowley's not a crap coach by any means. We've seen what he's done with Salford. And I think the longer this goes on, I think the more you say Salford's success under Watson was largely down to Rowley being his right-hand man.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they've got in very contrasting fortunes. Because you would have said Huddersfield was an upgrade with the money they've got. Compared to Salford, who...
And the money they've spent as well.
At the start of this season, didn't have a stadium lease, and we thought could be the team that dropped from Super League from not being able to fulfil the criteria.
Yeah.
Compare that to where they are on pitch, where Salford, who didn't even have a 25-man squad at the start of the season, are in the playoffs. And Huddersfield have spent big again.
And are spending big again on Burgess.
And they're getting players like Burgess. Which is where, what we were saying when we had Johnny on. What did I say about that signing? I could see it being the biggest waste of money in Super League.
Yeah.
And they're not even in playoffs. And once again, they're too busy spatting over what Jake Connor's role is. And it feels like this is the third season we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't work with him, just cut your losses and release him.
Yeah. Because
it's clearly not working out, the whole Watson and Connor relationship. They're like a bloody toxic married couple that keep cheating on each other and going back.
Yeah,
just cut your loss to get a divorce, for Christ's sake. It's not fair on the kids.
God, I feel like that's the best ending we've ever had.
That's the best ending we've had on a pod.
That's something with Nick Pat and his bull girl. And
you know, that bring back the try-time mentality. Right there.
We'll finish on this. Dick Patton's gone from being bull girl to being whatever Lions called at Swindon to now
transfers.
Now
we'll save it for there.
Now he's on what is it? Percy. I don't even know what he is, but the rover is called Percy.
Yeah, it is. How it seems supposed to be a rover.
But yeah,
anyway,
thanks for watching, guys, all listening, and we appreciate all the support. If you've made it this far
and made it through what we think has been a very annoying camera.
Yeah.
Thanks. We'll try and get it sorted for next episode.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you next time for.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.